Well, I mean, it's very obvious that the heat is coming to him and coming to people around his cabinet and so forth. But I think this is going to be helpful in terms of easing off this kind of influence of this media mogul on the British politics.
Well, do you think that will happen? I mean, we've had Ed Miliband and Nick Clegg call for more pluralism, but how would that happen, and which rules would need to be introduced for that to happen?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the call yesterday or the day before with regard to the issue of ownership and try to probably limit it to about 20%, I think that's very symbolic, and that will have a very positive kind of repercussion on the issue of the role of the media, especially the press in this country. Knowing now that, I mean, the 40% or about 30% what Rupert Murdoch owns in terms of the access to or the ownership of media outlets. So I think what we'll be witnessing, in my opinion, is the not only the opening, but the continuation and the speeding up of this debate with regard to what role and what social kind of influence the media should have in the future, thinking about the issue of ownership, thinking about not letting this kind of saga to happen, which is a criminal act, which we call the tapping on people's private telephones. I mean, it is amazing. It is unbelievable that in a democratic, free country, this kind of thing is really happening. I mean, this really reminds us of dictatorships. I mean, I can say this happens in the time of Ben Ali in Tunisia, or the time of Mubarak in Egypt, or in Saudi Arabia, or some other countries. But I can't believe that this is happening in the UK. Also, the relationship between the media and the police. Yes. I mean, the police is supposed to play this kind of guard with regard to corruption. Now, if the police is in the heart of this corruption saga, I think this is also very, very alarming. So I think what we'll be seeing, in my opinion, in the future weeks, if not months, is really the kind of flagging up of this idea of the issue of limiting ownership of any person or any organization with regard to how much they should own with regard to press, radio and television and so forth, because that has a huge repercussion on how much influence they will have on politics and also on public opinion.
Do you think it was quite ironic, the timing, because this was at the very time that Murdoch was actually seeking to extend his media empire? He already has 40%, and this debate was going to happen in Parliament, and then the hacking crisis unfolded. And so we heard that his proposal, he'd withdrawn it, but many people thought, well, he's wily, he's calculating, it'll just come on the agenda when things have calmed down. But now, looking at how this crisis is unfolding, do you think that whole terms of debate have now changed?
Oh, undoubtedly, and of course it's now reached the United States, where I have to say I think the federal agencies will take a much, much tougher approach. They tend to. And if there's any wrongdoing that can be attributed to Murdoch and the family, they're in substantial trouble. I was editor of Tribune many years ago, and Michael Foot was a former Labour leader who was accused by one of Murdoch's papers of being a KGB agent, which is such manifest nonsense. And Michael Foot, to his credit, actually took Murdoch personally to court. He said that, you know, the proprietor of the newspaper is obviously going to be responsible for everything that goes into the newspaper, and he won substantial damages, some of which kept our paper going, by the way. So we could attack Murdoch even more. But the point about the Murdoch empire
was very real, and not everybody, you know, has recourse to.
No, absolutely. But now we know. I mean, I think. I think we've always sort of known that there are various practices that go on, especially in the tabloid press and in some of the relations with police, that are highly questionable. What we didn't know is how pervasive this was, and also how insecure we all potentially are. I mean, 200 people have been told that they may well have been hacked into. Another 3,800 have yet to find out. Possibly far more. We don't know how many of the records were broken.
I mean, today they talk about potentially 4,000 people who may be victims of telephone hacking. This is what the BBC is saying today. I just saw it on their website a couple of hours ago. So this is, I think, quite alarming, as you just mentioned. Because people used to think it was only high-profile figures, and the shock came when a murdered schoolgirl's phone had been hacked into and some of her voicemails deleted. That's what's caused the public outcry.
Absolutely.
But there are many, many individuals out there, as you say, who may well have been hacked all along and have yet to find out about it.
No, I think it's been a real shock for people. I have a horrible feeling that so long as it's politicians and a few celebrities, even though what was going on was terrible, people switched off.
Yes.
Actually, the political class in this country are not liked. And so people watch these celebrities, and it's all part of the great game. And of course, also people do buy Murdoch's papers.
Exactly.
I mean, 2.5 million people buy News of the World every Sunday. But once it was known that that was going on, that murdered children's phones could be hacked into, the phones of former servicemen who'd been killed in action, all these sorts of things, really, really galvanised and shocked people, and opened up this whole organisation to the glare of publicity, the sort of publicity that shines everywhere else, and to serial criminality. And this is the most astonishing thing that we're seeing happening before us. Probably one of the biggest media empires actually breaking up around us. Politicians who have been enthralled to them and who only 2 weeks ago were partying with them.
Well,
I mean, look at them all.
Aspect. It's not just one particular party. And this is something which perhaps feeds into the disillusionment in the general public when they see it's not just one particular party, it's politicians from all parties who are partying these people, who have these close links. And then, hey, presto, when it comes to policy decisions, there is that influence. I mean, how are the general public supposed to respond to that?
I think one of the repercussions, probably, before I attempt to talk about this, is the issue of the role of the press in our society. I mean, traditionally we know that the press and the media in general is playing a kind of watchdog role in our society. It does protect us from the corruption of politicians or what have you. I think unfortunately that role has been undermined with the growth of the role of the tabloids in this country, especially with the focus on, let's say, celebrities and so forth, and less serious news, serious analysis, and what have you. So I think I'm hoping that the watchdog role will be reinforced and probably reconsidered in the future by the press itself. The press will regain its traditional influence as a real watchdog that protects the normal citizens from the corruption of politicians or what have you. I think this is what I'll be looking for as an academic in a way, because unfortunately this debate in the last at least 20 years, 30 years has been the digest of some of the elites, of some of the academics only. We are the people who only talk about this traditional role of the press, but I think the normal general public, they are not interested anymore in this kind of role. They are sucked into the consumption of the tabloids, who are feeding us with, let's say, this I don't know how to call it, but superficial analysis of what is going on around us. Everything is turned into a kind of celebrity gossip around us.
Two separate issues there, because clearly a lot of people like to have some superficial reading. That's the choice they make. But whether it's superficial or not in terms of what that analysis is, and is there a real choice and diversity in analysis? Some people would not have been aware till right now that both the Sun newspaper and the Times newspaper, which some people may feel are very different newspapers, actually politically had a very coherent message, because it was the same angle that was being put forward. We talked about the Israeli angle, but in domestic policies as well. For example, the cuts. You will not find an alternative to the cuts are necessary type narrative in the majority of British newspapers. So what impact does that have on democracy? Because then does that make politicians timid, because they'll be labelled, they'll be smeared, because they do not fall into line with what a particular proprietor may want, who generally is very rich and has a certain type of interest?
Well, I would say to you that I think the political class has largely been in the pockets of the media moguls for a very, very long time. And if you look at the whole attitude towards trade unions in this country, or local government, the public service, to wars elsewhere, I mean, this is the sort of thing. It's what we get as a so-called populist narrative. It's more extreme, of course, in the United States, where Murdoch's got his grip on the New York Post and Fox TV.
But is it really populist, or is it that this is what people are fed?
Well, people are fed this, but I mean, the trouble is, we've got to be very careful, because you don't want to fall into this trap saying, well, they've got it all, where everybody else might as well give up because there's nowhere else they can go. People can buy alternative newspapers. There are alternatives. Some people could buy the Guardian. More people could buy the Daily Mirror. Perhaps the Daily Mirror and the Sunday Mirror need to be more populist for where they're coming from. They might sell some more newspapers. Who knows? But also, I mean, there is the sort of liberating effect of the internet too. People have got many more different ways of getting hold of information than they used to. And I also think that a lot of youngsters can see through all this pap, and they're not that impressed by all this constant celebrity. They don't take it very seriously.